now, since we're caught up on the highlights, we don't want the small talk. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is if we're caught up on the highlights of your life, I kind of know everything that's going on with you. And when I meet with you for coffee, are you just going to reiterate everything that you just posted? Mm-hmm. And so we're this culture that consumes the highlights of people's lives. Yeah. And so people are, I feel like, just wallowing in the things that they can't discuss or don't want to discuss. Some people do bring their problems to social media, and we are aware of them when they're struggling. But a lot of people don't. Mm-hmm.
So, Julie, today we're talking about how social media can oftentimes be a barrier in communication. And I don't know about you, but we use social media to communicate with our loved ones, with our friends all the time. But I think sometimes it can be a barrier.
Yeah, I think culturally we can tell that communication has gotten worse. Mm-hmm. We are more connected. Technically,
sure,
superficially, but we know each other less.
Yeah.
And so social media has been around, 20, 25 years now. And for those who grew up on social media, you can tell there's some communication barriers that have happened. It's changed the way we communicate. And I think it's impacted society and how we communicate and connect with each other.
Yeah. One of our, a series that we did on generations in the workplace, when you look at Gen Z and Gen Alpha that's coming behind Gen Z, they're so consumed day to day with social media. And I remember seeing just some research and some articles about how communication style of even Gen Z, there are things that they're uncomfortable with, like picking up the phone and calling someone. And so sometimes that communication can be a challenge because you're so consumed with communicating on social media or being on a digital device.
Yeah, so social media has done a couple things with communication. It has changed and altered some things. I think one of the main ones is, I know more information about somebody, but I know them less. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? I can get on social media and I can probably tell you have 3 kids, they go to this school, they play these sports, they're involved in this, they won an award in this, and they got this and this, but I don't really know that.
Or the last time you had a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe I don't feel like I need to have a conversation with them because I know all this information about them. But the problem is I don't really know them. And social media is just a snapshot of your life, a small portion of your life. It's not really everything. Yeah. And so I've noticed, look, I'll be honest, I have friends of mine that have kids. I've never met those kids, but I've been watching them grow up on social media.
Same, yeah.
Grade through grade through grade through grade with all their accomplishments. And probably we'll see them one day and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you play basketball so well. And this kid's going to be like, who are you?
Yeah. Yeah, I know people like that too. It's like, it's a great tool because you can stay connected, but at the same time, like you said, it's only snapshots. It's highlights and, things that they're celebrating or that's exciting through life. But at the same time, if you think about, if you're not taking time to actually connect and have real meaningful conversations with that person, they're probably have some things that might be heavy that they're not sharing necessarily on social media. And so, when you're not engaging on a face-to-face or, a phone call of some kind, you're missing a lot of those details. Yeah.
And I probably won't take initiative to send a message out, hey, saw your pics on Facebook, because we feel updated on their life through social media.
Yeah.
We feel like we know what's going on with them because they're posting enough for us to see what's happening. Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes as people, we don't feel like the need to take initiative because what new can they possibly tell us other than what's on social media? And so, like I said, we're more connected. We know more information, but we're not really connecting in a communication standard way, like to understand and really get to know people. And so, and I think that happens. And then I think you lose your desire to want to connect because you kind of feel like you're connected.
Caught up already, yeah.
Yeah, and which leads to our second point, which is it can create a false sense of connection.
It does. Yeah, it does. I was just thinking, when you want to have that opportunity to connect with them, it's being more intentional about building that relationship versus just connecting superficially. from social media because you're only catching some of those pieces or some of the highlights of their life. Like if you really want to be intentional with that relationship, you do have to have those different touch points outside of social media. And I think that's where the point is that it has created barriers in our communication where we're just relying on that. And it's not a holistic approach to communication.
No, I agree. And I'm guilty of it. We moved here from another state and I had a lot of friends in another state and I don't randomly think about texting them or calling them to see how they're doing, but I do see their Facebook and Instagram and TikToks, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And the reality is I don't know what's going on. I just know what's going on with these snapshots of their life. Mm-hmm. And therefore it hinders me a little bit to be like, I don't need to call them. Yeah. I don't need to text them, see how they're doing. I already know how they're doing. Mm-hmm. And so it's created this very strange dynamic, I think, in relationships in general, where I feel like if I didn't have social, and I don't know, I've spent all my adulthood on, even high school years in social media, so I don't know what it would look like, but I would think I would be more intentional with calling if I really wanted to know what's going on and how they're doing. Mm-hmm. If they're thriving, if they're struggling, all those things. But I assume those things now based off posts that are made on social media.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking as you're talking about when you had access to social media, I'm like, you're giving away our age. Yeah. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah. I mean, y'all remember the AOL chat rooms.
I do.
When we were in high school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I think for me it's a false sense of connection. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could meet somebody and reconnect and everything's okay. Mm-hmm. But we're losing that ability to communicate and really understand the deeper things of what's happening. And I think I was reading an article the other day about social media influencers that post all these things, but they're attempting suicide and these things are happening and they look so happy on the pictures and they look so great. And then like this happens and it's like nobody knew they were struggling or they had substance abuse issues. Nobody knew because we're taking a look at the snapshot. And so if we really want to get to know people and really want to foster relationships, we're going to have to come away from the social media culture of it. And I've also known people who have great relationships on social media. They're engaged enough. People date on, they find people get married, they can meet on dating apps and get married. So there's some value in some of this, obviously. But I think for those of us that use it as like the scapegoat, that you don't want to intentionally have relationships, you can get a false sense of connection. Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking like, what is it that keeps people from wanting to engage? What is it that's keeping them from wanting to reach out? Is it because we're so busy? Is it because maybe they're concerned about reaching out? If they are intentional to reach out and say, hey, let's go grab coffee. Like, what is it you think that's keeping people from having a different type of communication with friends? And, people that are far away, a different state, or you move, that's obviously different. You're using social media to stay connected and they can still stay connected to your life. But I think about people that are here, like where I live, that I don't see, family members that I don't see because like, oh yeah, I saw this on social media.
Well, first thing, I feel like you're attacking the introverts.
Not intentionally.
But secondly, I have a theory on this. Okay. I think what's happened with social media is a thing where we list our accomplishments and the big things that happen, good and bad, right? There's a death, there's a birth, there's a marriage, there's an engagement, there's a relationship. Yeah. We get a new dog, which is like the greatest thing ever. And all these things. So they're highlights, okay? So now since we're caught up on the highlights, we don't want the small talk. And so what happens is if we're caught up on the highlights of your life, I kind of know everything that's going on with you. And when I meet with you for coffee, are you just going to reiterate everything that you just posted? And so we're this culture that consumes the highlights of people's lives. Yeah. And so people are, I feel like, just wallowing in the things that they can't discuss or don't want to discuss. Some people do bring their problems to social media, and we are aware of them when they're struggling. But a lot of people don't. And so it's interesting to see that. So if I don't want to call somebody and meet them up for coffee, why don't I want to do that? Because I already have a false sense of connection and I feel connected already. And so, but what we are kind of seeing a little bit right now is I have noticed, and this could just be my circles, people coming off social media. And I've noticed that to be a trend. And I've noticed every time I closed my account. Oh, I just shut it down.
Yeah. Or taking a hiatus for a while and just like taking a break.
Yeah. And in the last 3 months, I feel like I've heard that more than anything. So I'm trying to figure out what's actually going on. And if a person has a lot of friendships and good connections, they're not really active on social media either. So when you see people, this used to be me. I do my quarterly post on social media.
That was yearly.
Yeah, I mean, after I got a niece and nephew, I feel like I post more, but it's just with them.
Yeah,
and so those people think, she makes a post every 3 months, 4 months, once a year, maybe once. Sometimes I do it once a year, but those are my highlights, of the things that make me happy. But in between that, I'm busy meeting with people and getting to know people. And so I don't feel this need that I need connection on social media. Most of the time I'm dreading, this is a true story. I think I don't know if I told you this. I'm not very active on Facebook, but I ran into somebody and they're like, I sent you a Facebook request. And then when I went to go look, I had 275 going back, 4 or 5 years.
That are just sitting out there.
They're just sitting there. I was like,
what do you think those people are thinking?
Hopefully nothing, but I was like, I didn't know they, I found condolences that people had sent me on Instagram and stuff last year when my father passed away. I just found it a couple months ago and I was like, where did these come from? I didn't even know these people all reached out to me or wished me happy birthday.
Well, maybe you needed to read it later.
And I was like, and I'm like, hey, sorry. Thank you so much. So sorry. I don't know why I'm just seeing this. And I think Instagram went to that primary, general.
Yes, things get lost.
And
sometimes.
I'm like, now I have to go through 3 inboxes. I'm already not checking the other one. So, I've noticed I've got a full schedule and I usually try to connect face to face with people as much as I can. And
I really do think you're good at that. So I don't fault you when you don't see things that I send you on social media.
I know. And you send me 15. I'm like, what? I'm supposed to listen to all this? How is this possible?
Sorry. Oh, the 2-hour long one?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, recently someone in my circle came up to me and was like, hey, we should get together because, I've been seeing some of the stuff you're doing with the podcast and I realized I don't know you. I don't really know that much about you. And I was like, really? I just was kind of caught off guard because they were actually being very intentional about wanting to connect. And I do have appreciation for that. But at the same time, I'm like, wow, I thought we were already friends on Facebook. So that was my false sense of connection.
Yes.
I was like, oh, we're good. We're good, friend, But
I know your kids.
I know. But this person genuinely wanted to have a deeper conversation. So I do have an appreciation for that because sometimes I think we do get caught up in the false sense of connection. We already know what's going on with them. Why do we need to sit down for coffee too?
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a different level of conversation that happens. And I think sometimes we kind of dismiss the importance of that. And as communicators and wanting to be more intentional with connecting with other people, we have to, of course, whatever our capacity is, we talked about that recently too, is if we have the capacity and want to build those friendships or those relationships, then we have to be intentional outside of social media to do so.
Yeah. And I think for me as well, I used to, when I didn't have capacity, for whatever reason in my mind, I used to think, I don't have time to schedule another dinner. It really doesn't have to be that intense. It can be a quick coffee and it can be quick and you can schedule it on your calendar for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Even that face-to-face time does build some type of rapport and connection and communication with somebody. And so it doesn't have to be something, it doesn't always have to be a weekday or weeknight dinner. It doesn't, it could be breakfast. And even for people for, out of state, or we have FaceTime now. We're FaceTiming people. There are ways, I never use FaceTime. I have a friend of mine that she would 8 a.m. FaceTime me. And I'd be like, what? Why? Why are you FaceTiming me? I'm still in bed. Why are you FaceTiming me? But there's a difference.
There is a difference.
There's a difference. Yeah. And she's trying to connect with me. And she's a close friend of mine. And we hit or miss in seasons. But she's connecting. She's intentional about connecting with me, even while I'm still in bed, laying in bed.
Yeah.
And, she'll call and be like, I just wanted to tell you that, my dog, got this cool bandana when she went to get groomed. And I feel like that's important. I don't know. I just feel like, wow, that's intentional connection. And that's a different friendship.
It is.
Than the false, connections I have with people. And I know all their kids and their names and where they go to school. But I don't have any relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was just thinking as you're talking about FaceTime, like I have a friend and, you know, when you're out of town and you kind of disconnect, you don't catch up. So we had to have FaceTime, porch talk. And, you know, I think when we do that, that's creating time to be intentional and connect on the things that's going on in life and what's gone on the past week. And that type of connection doesn't happen over social media. And thankfully, we do have technology. We do have tools that allows us to have those kind of conversations and FaceTime that, you know, you're still setting aside time to do that. And it's important. That's how you build relationships.
Yeah. And I would also assume, I'm not saying you can't meet friends and things on social media, because I feel like you can.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you were going to take that relationship to a next level, you can be, let me text you, let me give you my phone number, let me call you. Like, I think that would happen at some point organically in a relationship for more intimacy and intentionality in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a good place to meet people and, you know, meet people that are like you and like meet similar people because I think it's connected the world very much so.
It has. But at the same time, I think about people recently that have like reached out and sent me a friend request and they want to get to know you. But at the same time, I'm the type of person, I don't put everything out there either. So it's kind of, it still brings me back to the false connection. If they want to get to know me, we've got to have some type of conversation on a one-on-one level, because you're only going to get like, you know, a little highlights here and there versus who I am as an individual.
I know, but I get like people following me and, you know, friend requests and stuff from people who like brush shoulders with me at Publix. So I'm just like, I don't know if I've missed what social media, how it's supposed to work, but I just get it from tons of people and I'm just like, oh yeah, I saw you for 5 seconds. I guess we can be friends. I mean, you know, like, and Instagram, you can't control it. They just follow you.
Yeah.
And I think I told you this one time, I went to a conference and like, didn't really do anything, but I ended up with like 55 extra followers. And I was like, why are your people following me? I just barely met you. Like, but I realized that's the way for them to feel connected. So maybe they didn't have time to talk to me, but they'd like to know me more.
Yeah.
But little did they know, I only post once a year. So there's not much you're going to find out. But yeah, but I think also, and I think our last point was, you know, the problem with social media is it doesn't hold people accountable.
Yeah, it doesn't. I think sometimes it creates this safe space to say the things that you wouldn't say, maybe to a person's face. And you might be airing your opinion a bit too much on social media. And I think sometimes it lacks that accountability that should be there in communication.
Yeah. Usually when I'm reading and scrolling through posts, I see people post stuff and I'm like, are people this broken to say the things that they're saying so boldly and so critically? Yeah. Like, I just want to be like, I feel like there should be like a standard for therapy for everybody at this point, because I just feel like there's this, I'm appalled by some of the stuff that's said. Yeah. And I always wonder, like, how broken is this person? And then there's the people that are trying to argue with them. Like, why are you arguing with the person?
Yeah.
Like,
you're wasting your time.
Yeah. You should just ignore that comment. But how broken is a person to just say something like that and not understanding any context?
Part of me really wonders if it's a cultural thing too. And I mean, I haven't lived overseas in a while, but when I did live overseas, the social media was still a part of our lives. But I feel like here in the States, people are bolder with their opinions in some ways.
I'm going to disagree with you.
You are?
Yeah, because I follow a lot of international social media people. Yeah. And us Asians are mean. We are very...
Well, that's true, I guess.
We are very blunt and we are very mean and we don't need any context. Like, I just feel like, and this is not just one Asian country. I've gone through a couple of others and, you know, you follow the international celebrities and stuff happens. I'm like, do y'all even want to know the information before you comment? You know, it's very much so. And maybe I'm thinking that because I feel like it's a lot harsher than the U.S., but our algorithms show us more of the U.S., but I feel like I get a lot of international.
Yeah, maybe that's why.
But I think overall the world is just, I can post this here and post my opinion. Let me post it here. I don't need to learn anything. So I think it lacks accountability. And when you lack accountability, and I think that's why people don't have a lot of close friendships, because friendships require accountability.
They do.
You said this, you hurt my feelings. In this manner, it doesn't matter if you hurt someone's feelings. No one's going to tell you they hurt your feelings. It doesn't matter if you're a narcissist and you're posting stuff. No, there's no one to question you on what you're posting. You know, and so I think it takes that accountability out so people feel like, oh, I can behave and act and do whatever I want, and I don't have anyone telling me that I hurt their feelings.